My name is Dakota Reeves. I am 45 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by. Today I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you least expect, even the ones you sit beside every single day. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end because my story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. I have been working at a mid-sized insurance firm for over 15 years, and while I never loved my job, I was good at it, respected, and had built a reputation for being reliable and organized. Most of my colleagues treated me with kindness, but when a new hire named Claire Dalton joined our team, things changed in ways I couldn't have imagined. Claire was younger, maybe in her early 30s, beautiful in a sharp, intimidating way with piercing green eyes that seemed to always be watching. At first, she was polite, even friendly often, complimenting my outfits, laughing too hard at my jokes, and going out of her way to grab coffee for me. But little by little, that friendliness twisted into something else, something unsettling. She started showing up at my desk when I was working, standing silently behind me for long stretches as though she was studying not just my work, but me. She would repeat my phrases in meetings, mimicking my mannerisms in subtle ways that at first I thought were coincidence, but then it became too exact to ignore. When I mentioned it jokingly, she smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes and said, "I guess I just admire you, Dakota. I want to be just like you." It sounded flattering, but something about her tone sent a chill down my spine. Over the next few weeks, small things started disappearing from my desk: a pen I had owned for years, a framed photo of me and my daughter, even a scarf I sometimes kept over the back of my chair. I thought maybe I misplaced them until one day I saw Claire walking out of the building wearing that same scarf. When I confronted her, she laughed and claimed it was hers, but I knew it wasn't. Everyone around us brushed it off as coincidence, but I felt something much darker was happening than the whispers started. People at work began treating me differently, colleagues avoiding eye contact or giving me strange looks. I overheard someone mention that I was being investigated for misconduct, which shocked me because I had done nothing wrong. When I pressed HR about it, they wouldn't give me details, only saying complaints had been made. My stomach dropped because I knew only one person had a motive to turn the office against me: Claire. Soon even my boss was questioning me, calling me into his office late at night to ask about inappropriate emails that had supposedly been sent from my account. I swore I hadn't sent them, but he showed me proof messages that looked exactly like something I'd written, only I hadn't. Someone had been copying my writing style, my phrasing, even my signature, and I realized Claire wasn't just mimicking me in meetings, she was trying to become me, replace me, erase me. The breaking point came one evening when I stayed late to catch up on paperwork. The office was dark, empty, and quiet, the hum of the fluorescent lights echoing through the halls. I heard footsteps in the distance and assumed it was security, but when I turned, Claire was standing there in the shadows watching me with that same sharp smile. "You should go home, Dakota," she whispered, her voice low and chilling. "You're too tired. You don't belong here anymore. Everyone sees it. Everyone knows." My chest tightened, panic rushing through me as she stepped closer, her eyes glittering strangely in the dim light. "I've already taken everything," she said softly. "Your reputation, your friends here. Soon even your family won't trust you." I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. She brushed past me slowly, almost deliberately, and as she left I saw something tucked under her arm, my missing photo of me and my daughter. My blood ran cold because I realized then this wasn't just about work anymore. She had crossed a line that made my skin crawl. She'd wormed her way into my life, and I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. After that night, everything began to spiral out of control in ways I could never have imagined, and I found myself living in constant fear that Claire was tightening her grip around every part of my life. The morning after seeing her walk away with the photo of my daughter, I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying her words over and over in my head. At work, whispers seemed louder, stares sharper, and I noticed that even my closest colleagues, who had been my friends for years, were suddenly distant, like they knew something about me I didn't. My boss barely looked at me during our team meeting, choosing instead to direct all his praise toward Claire, who was now sitting directly in front of me, mimicking my posture, the way I tilted my head, even the way I scribbled notes on my notepad. The eerie realization struck me: she wasn't just stealing my belongings or sabotaging my reputation, she was becoming me piece by piece, as though my life were a costume she could simply slip into that afternoon. I returned to my desk after lunch to find my computer unlocked even though I was certain I had logged out. A chill ran through me as I scanned my screen, noticing an email draft open with my name in the signature, except it wasn't my writing. It was Claire's words written as if they were mine, a resignation letter addressed to HR. My stomach dropped and I quickly deleted it, but the fear clawed at me because she had gotten into my computer somehow. I reported it, but the IT department only shrugged, claiming there was no sign of a breach. I knew then she was clever, meticulous, covering her tracks, so I'd look like the crazy one. That night when I got home, the terror followed me. I found my mailbox stuffed with letters. Anonymous notes, each one scrawled with phrases like, "You're a liar and you don't belong here." One of them even had my daughter's name written in bold letters, underlined 3 times. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped them all, and my first instinct was to call the police, but I hesitated. What could I tell them? That my coworker was stealing my life? That she was sending me letters I couldn't prove came from her? I knew they'd dismiss me just like everyone else had. The breaking point came one weekend when I left town for a short trip to visit my sister. When I returned home Sunday night, the lock on my front door felt wrong, like it had been tampered with. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. Nothing looked out of place at first, but as I walked through the living room, my skin prickled with unease. Then I froze. On my kitchen counter sat the framed photo of my daughter, the one that had gone missing from my desk at work. I stumbled back, choking on panic. Claire had been in my home. She had crossed into the one place I thought I was safe. I rushed to check the bedrooms, the closets, every corner, terrified she might still be there, but the house was empty. Still, the violation clung to me, and I barely slept that night, sitting in the living room with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife in my trembling hands. The next day at work, Claire acted as if nothing had happened, breezing into the office with her perfect smile, her perfume filling the air around my desk. As she leaned in and whispered, "Rough night?" My blood ran cold. She knew every word she spoke felt like a knife twisting into me, and I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Over the next week, her attacks escalated. She spread rumors that I was unstable, that I had been caught crying in the bathroom, that I was drinking during office hours. Colleagues avoided me like I carried a disease, and even my boss began asking me if I was feeling well enough to keep working. It was like she was building a narrative piece by piece, painting me as someone unfit, fragile, even dangerous. Then came the phone calls. At first they were just silent, heavy breathing on the line, always in the middle of the night. Then whispers began, my name drawn out in a hiss, or the sound of someone laughing softly. My daughter, who was staying with me part-time, started waking up crying, saying she saw a woman standing outside her window. My blood turned to ice because I knew exactly who it was. I tried everything to protect her, changing the locks again, installing cameras, even sleeping in her room, but Claire always seemed one step ahead. One night, after putting my daughter to bed, I checked the footage from the new security camera I had installed near the front door. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the screen. At 2:13 a.m., the motion sensor triggered, and there she was, Claire, standing on my porch, staring directly into the camera with that same unnerving smile. She didn't move for 5 minutes, just stood there watching before finally turning and walking away into the darkness. That was the moment I knew I had to fight back. This wasn't just workplace harassment anymore. This was a full-blown invasion, a psychological war designed to break me. She wanted me gone, erased, destroyed, and if I didn't do something soon, she would succeed. I began documenting everything, the notes, the calls, the footage, even the changes in how my coworkers treated me. At first, it felt futile, like screaming into a void, but it gave me a sense of control, a way to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. Still, the fear gnawed at me every second of the day, the dread of not knowing how far she was willing to go. And then, just when I thought I had seen the worst of it, she made her most terrifying move yet. One Monday morning, I walked into the office to find my coworkers huddled around a screen, whispering and glancing in my direction. My stomach churned as I approached, and when I saw what they were looking at, I nearly collapsed. It was a video of me in my own bedroom sleeping. The camera panned slowly over my body as I shifted under the covers, completely unaware I was being watched, and then the frame caught her, Claire, standing in the corner of my room, smiling directly at the camera. Before the footage cut off, my coworkers looked at me with a mixture of horror and pity, but none of them seemed to understand the truth. It wasn't me who had made this video, it was her. Claire had been in my home again, standing over me while I slept. The world tilted around me as I realized she wasn't going to stop until I was completely broken. But what she didn't know was that I was no longer afraid of fighting back. She wanted me gone, but I wasn't going to let her win. I would gather every piece of evidence, every witness, and every ounce of strength I had left. If she wanted a war, then she was about to get one, and I was ready to make her regret ever stepping into my life. The moment I saw that video of myself sleeping with Claire standing in the corner of my bedroom, something inside me snapped. Fear no longer controlled me. Instead, it hardened into rage, and that rage became my armor. I realized she wanted me terrified, cornered, and humiliated, but what she hadn't counted on was that I was stronger when I was pushed to my limits. That night, I locked every door, closed every curtain, and sat at my dining table surrounded by the notes, letters, and camera footage I had collected, piecing together a strategy like I was preparing for battle. I couldn't rely on the police. They would dismiss it as paranoia without hard proof, so I decided to create my own trap, something that would not only expose her but destroy her carefully built mask in front of everyone. She had fooled. I started small, installing hidden cameras in places she wouldn't suspect, inside picture frames, a smoke detector, even in the vent above my living room. Every time she entered my house, and I knew she would again, I'd catch her, but that wasn't enough. She was cunning, slippery, always 2 steps ahead. I needed her to slip up publicly in a way she couldn't deny. I began baiting her at work, pretending to be fragile, defeated, exactly what she wanted me to be. When she made snide remarks about me in front of colleagues, I didn't fight back. I let her dig her claws deeper. When she accidentally forwarded embarrassing personal messages to the team, I didn't lash out. I simply watched, and when she began bragging to others in whispers, thinking I couldn't hear about how unstable I let her believe her narrative was working, because behind the scenes I was documenting everything. I bought a small voice recorder I kept hidden in my pocket, catching every venom-laced word that spilled from her mouth when she thought no one else was listening. At home, my cameras caught her creeping into my yard at night, sometimes even pressing her face to the window glass. Her smile grotesque in the darkness. Each clip became another piece of ammunition in the arsenal I was building against her. But I wasn't just gathering evidence, I was planning my strike. One Friday evening, after everyone had left the office, I stayed behind, pretending to finish paperwork. Claire predictably stayed too, lingering by my desk with her fake smile. "You really should get some rest, Dakota," she whispered, her voice dripping with mock concern. "It's not healthy to stay up all night, especially when your daughter needs you." The mention of my daughter made my blood run cold, but I kept my face calm, letting her think she was winning. When she finally left, I slipped into her office and planted a tiny camera under her desk, angled perfectly at her computer screen. It was risky, but I needed to know what she was planning, and my instincts told me she was already setting the stage for something worse. For the next week I waited. I barely slept, running on adrenaline and caffeine, but then the footage paid off. One night, Claire stayed late, and I watched through the hidden feed as she logged into her computer, pulling up what looked like a folder full of documents labeled with my name. My heart pounded as I leaned closer to the screen. Inside were forged emails, fake HR complaints, even staged photos of me looking disheveled and drunk, as if she were building an airtight case to have me fired, or worse, institutionalized. She was preparing to erase me, not just from the company, but from my own life. I copied every file remotely, saving it to a hidden drive, and then I went one step further. I edited together a highlight reel of her worst actions. The footage of her standing on my porch, the video of her inside my bedroom, the files she was forging, even the audio recordings of her taunting me. Piece by piece, I was creating the perfect weapon. But the most dangerous part of my plan still lay ahead. I decided the confrontation had to be public, undeniable, a moment where she couldn't twist the narrative. I reached out to HR and requested a meeting to discuss harassment, knowing Claire would be summoned as well the day of the meeting. I walked into the conference room with shaking hands, but fire in my chest. Claire sat across from me, her smile smug and confident, as if she already knew how this would end. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, watching me like a predator watching prey, but she didn't know that for once the prey had claws. When the HR director asked me to explain, I took a deep breath, pulled out a small USB drive, and said calmly, "It'll be easier if I just show you." I plugged it into the projector, and the room fell silent as the screen lit up. First came the footage of her on my porch, in the middle of the night, staring into the camera with that chilling smile. Gasps rippled across the room. Then the video of her in my bedroom as I slept. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Claire's smile faltered, but she tried to laugh it off, saying, "This is ridiculous, that's not me." But then came the audio clips, her voice crystal clear, mocking me, threatening my daughter, gloating about making me look unstable. Finally, I showed the files from her computer, the forged documents, the staged complaints, all meticulously organized in her own folders. The room erupted. HR staff stared at her in horror, and even my boss looked pale, his mouth hanging open. Claire tried to argue, her voice trembling, claiming I had doctored the footage, but the evidence was overwhelming. For the first time, her mask cracked. Her perfect composure slipped, and I saw the monster underneath the rage in her eyes. The hatred twisting her features, she lunged toward me, snarling, but security was already there, pulling her away as she screamed my name like a curse. The HR director turned to me, his voice steady but shaken. "Dakota, I think we need to involve the police." Relief washed over me, but it was hollow because deep down I knew this wasn't over. Claire wasn't the type to go quietly. As she was dragged out of the building, she twisted in the security guard's grip, locking eyes with me and hissing, "This isn't finished. I'll never let you go." The words echoed in my head long after she was gone, and a sick realization gnawed at me. Exposing her was only the beginning. She had lost her job, her facade, and her control, but monsters like Claire don't just disappear, they lash out harder when cornered, and something told me she was planning her most dangerous move yet. The police came that evening after the HR debacle, and for a brief moment I felt a strange relief, as if a crushing weight had been lifted from my chest. They questioned me, took copies of the recordings and documents, and promised they'd look into it, but I could see it in their eyes. To them, this was just another workplace harassment case, another unstable employee. They didn't understand what I understood. Claire wasn't just a manipulator or a bully. She was something far darker. Something that thrived on obsession and cruelty. The night after her arrest, I slept for the first time in weeks, but peace didn't last. 2 days later, she was released on bail, and that same night, I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of my front door creaking open. My blood froze. I crept into the hallway, gripping a heavy lamp like a weapon, and that's when I heard it, her voice whispering softly in the dark, "Dakota, you can't get rid of me. We belong together in this dance." The lamp slipped from my shaking hands, crashing to the floor. I turned, and there she was, standing in the shadows of my living room, her face pale, her hair disheveled, her eyes glinting with madness. But it wasn't the sight of her that chilled me to my core. It was the fact that she looked inhuman. Her grin stretched too wide, her shadow on the wall moved in a way her body didn't, and for the first time, I questioned whether Claire was ever just human at all. She lunged at me, and we crashed to the ground. Fighting desperately, her nails tore across my arms, and her voice hissed in my ear, "You should have stayed weak. You should have let me finish you." Somehow fueled by terror and rage, I shoved her back and scrambled toward the kitchen. My hand landed on the cast iron skillet on the counter, and as she came at me again, I swung with every ounce of strength left in me. The skillet connected with a sickening crack, and she collapsed unconscious or dead. I couldn't tell. My heart thundered as I grabbed my phone, calling the police, but when they arrived minutes later, Claire was gone. No broken door, no blood, no trace of a struggle. Just me standing there with shaking hands and wide, terrified eyes. They didn't believe me. They thought I was unraveling. My daughter begged me to move, to start over, and for her sake I did. I left that job, that house, that city. I thought I could escape. But monsters don't let you escape. Weeks later, in our new home, I received a package on the doorstep. Inside was a single flash drive. Against my better judgment, I plugged it in. The screen lit up with a grainy video, me asleep in my new bedroom. And in the corner of the frame, just like before, stood Claire, smiling, whispering my name into the dark. My breath caught, and I slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. I knew then what I had refused to accept all along. Claire wasn't just a coworker, wasn't just a tormentor. She was something ancient, something that fed on fear, and she had chosen me as her obsession. Exposing her, fighting her, running from her, it was all useless. Because some enemies don't just want to ruin your life. They want to own your soul, and no matter where I go, no matter how many walls I put between us, I can still hear her voice in the night whispering, "This isn't finished, Dakota. It will never be finished."